This is the most important. Welcome again to Diversity is the Game Changer. And I already posted my stories on Instagram. It will be really colorful um, conversation today. And I promise my lovely what it will be because we have this really diversified, colorful, bright mind with me today. It's not the first time we try to schedule our meeting, but we do believe in the power of universe. So it's always there decided where the best time to meet, and I'm so glad and privileged and honored to have my country neighbor, but not now actually. And welcome to the show, Daniel Ionescu, right?
Correct. Thank you very much for having me, Valeria.
Thank you so much, Daniel. We already, of course, we found the vibe and we started chatting. And I have already asked Daniel, please, you're so interesting. You already delivered so many gems. So stop. I want my audience to get them. He's so kind, he's Valeria. You can ask me again. Yeah, so the title today is Millennial Masters, the Heart of Mentorship and Community Building. And of course, today it's again diversity is the game changer, and we have a truly remarkable guest whose work has not only shaped the world of journalism but also sparked positive change in the entrepreneurs. It's always so difficult this word, I know, entrepreneurial landscape. Our guest, a visionary expert whose platforms have empowered entrepreneurs. Again, this word practice makes master, nurture communities, and ignited meaningful conversations across the globe. He's an award winning journalist, editor, and the founder of innovative platforms such as Millennial Masters, then Lincolnite, right? Did I pronounce correct? Yes.
Correct.
MyLocal,
Yes.
each designed to inspire, connect, and elevate the voices of entrepreneurs everywhere. Today, we'll dive into what drives his passion for mentorship and community building, as well as the invaluable lessons he has learned along all this way. So, please, again, welcome to join me, Daniel. I'm so happy to have you today with Diversity is the Game Changer. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me again, Valeria.
Yes, thank you, my darling. Okay, so I have already mentioned it many times, and I still do believe we all are from our childhood. One day, everybody was little girls, little boys with their dreams, with their imagination, and all small and big stuff, which really make impact on us, how we are today. And your journey into journalism and entrepreneurship is fascinating. But can you share how your childhood and last long and echoes from childhood impacted the person you are today? Thank you.
Wow, you're starting straight with the deep stuff.
Yes. Yes.
The um, I have been reflecting on it, and people have asked me before, what really made you want to go into media? I don't think there was always um, something, a particular moment in my life or in my childhood that made me want to do that. But I grew up in a very sociable family and environment. My mum comes from a large family. My dad, although he's the only child, he's a very sociable person. So there were always people that we were visiting, that they were coming to visit, relatives, friends, and I always kind of like enjoyed conversations and learning about people and getting to know them. So I
Mhm.
guess that was really my introduction to media in a way through the conversational manner. But then later on, that uh, transcribed into a love of reading, watching videos and news, and I think that kind of like then crystallized into me wanting to become not necessarily just a journalist, but also an editor and an information gateway. And that's how pretty much I ended up going to the UK from Bucharest in Romania, where I was born, to study journalism. And I studied at the University of Lincoln, where I still am. I still live in the city of Lincoln. And it's a small but historic city with a relatively limited media landscape. So upon graduating, the journalism job opportunities here were very limited.
Mm-hmm.
And when you are young, you are very brave and you don't mind risks. I'm sure you can identify with that, or maybe that's an entrepreneurial trait.
Mm-hmm.
But nevertheless, instead of searching too much for getting a role in journalism, I decided with a fellow colleague from university at the time to start our own publication in the city and provide local news in the way that we wanted it to be delivered. And that was really the inception point. But I think if I would dial it back a little bit more, we had a taster because during university, I was also running the student newspaper and website, and that was really an introduction, the real world crash course introduction into the world of journalism and local media. And that's how I really got into it, and a lot of the learning has been done along the way. And in over the coming years, almost 15 years, I've been doing local media and journalism. I developed that business and publication into a multiple titles, multiple staff, until the media landscape, especially the digital media landscape and for independent media, changed so significantly that it wasn't feasible to run that type of operation anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, I had to stop that venture and everything else that I was doing. So it came to a point where I had to stop, think, and reassess everything that I've been doing since I was in my early 20s and then being in my late 30s, deciding what I would want to do next and how could I see myself moving on and creating a new career. Going and being employed by somebody else after basically working for yourself for the entire life was very difficult, both in practicality and in concept. So I had to reassess what I loved doing the most, what I loved doing the least in the previous business, what I was good at realistically, and what I could improve on, and forge a new path. And that's how Millennial Masters was born. I knew that my strong skills were having interesting conversations with people and learning about their stories.
Mm-hmm.
I was good at putting together media brands and concepts and digital presence and promotion, and also putting together interesting articles, which was also in my strong suits. And I also knew that I wanted to do something where I wasn't limited to working in a small locality, which was what I was doing before.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to spread my wings further and meet people from around the UK and around the world. And possibly most importantly as well, I wanted to create a learning journey for other people. When you're an entrepreneur, it can be very lonely in a way.
Mm-hmm.
You can have a support group, which in hindsight I never really developed in terms of being able to push things on and exchange ideas, especially in this, what was then the local media industry, which was still relatively highly competitive.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to create a space where people would be able to learn from other people's journeys and identify what problems others have overcome, but also a place to share knowledge and wisdom gathered along the way from multiple industries, because I understood that that's a lot of these things are universal. And fast forward another 6 months, this is where we are today.
Wow, what a beautiful story, uh, from childhood until today. And what I could have noticed at the, we call that the red threads through all that. It's first of all your um, openness to the make impact by making change, but first of all to change yourself and be able to diversify yourself all the time, because like you already mentioned, probably it's a kind of approach for entrepreneur, uh, but many people still, when they're young, they're kind of in this bubble cocoon. They sometimes, I believe, shy. They don't know what to do. But you decided to move out from your country, which it's not still that many people do. Then they prefer, like, to follow the path from the generations, and they prefer to go the ways which already kind of predictable, right? But it's always people who are more bold, open, and diversified. They are not they dare to diversify themselves. They can make change to the world. They can great make impact. But first of all, you have to do everything yourself. You have to diversify yourself, and it's always by changing yourself, but being bold enough to admit that, okay, change is growth, and it's in the beginning it's uncomfortable, right? So it takes courage. It takes um, being open. It takes also courage to fail forward, because even though it sounds like everything just smooth from what person decided until
There were a
today,
lot
but
of failures
of
along the
course,
way, indeed, and I wouldn't have been doing what I'm doing now if I haven't failed before. Even after success, you can still have failure. Just because you had success for a certain amount of time, it doesn't mean that things will or cannot fail ever. That was possibly one of the most important lessons that I've had from my previous journey. Things can run okay for, you know, 5, 10, even 15 years, but then things can change so quickly, sometimes out of your control, or you don't have as much influence over them, that failure is inevitable, and picking yourself up and being able to reinvent and restart is crucial.
exactly, what a powerful message. That's why, because particularly in your domain, journalism, right? Last like you mentioned, maybe, I don't know, it's every single day we have these changes. It's so escalating, rapidly evolving landscape all the time. And when digital era came, so now suddenly all the books and all this presence, and when COVID, so it's totally changing, right? And then it's like how to not lose yourself, how actually to stop, breathe, pause, understand, okay, how can I change myself, and again diversify myself. It's like it's also, what was your um process actually, because we are speaking about like long longitude period of time, but to maintain everything on a daily basis, we have already started, actually you and me discussed that before we start recording. You have to have also kind of daily basis tools now, all leadership, especially entrepreneurs, because roller coaster of entrepreneurs, it's something, it's sometimes unpredictable, like from hour to hour, right? So if you could advise our audience, and especially young maybe entrepreneurs who just try to go this landscape, or actually just consider to go, whether to go or not, what would be the advices from your journey, from how to start and how actually focus on what, not to sometimes really give up because it can be so overwhelming? Thank you.
I'll start maybe from a different perspective,
Yes.
because one of the things that I do with Millennial Masters is I interview other entrepreneurs in the millennial millennial age. That's typically 26 to 42, so a wide generation, but a lot of the lessons apply for a generation below and a generation above.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a few main factors. The first one that you touched on is about starting something. If you are truly passionate about something and you are willing to learn and develop your skills,
Mm-hmm.
starting as early as possible and as young as possible is ideal. And this is something that I've seen from a lot of the other entrepreneurs I've interviewed on the Millennial Masters podcast as well. All of them started during or just before university, or instead of universities, in their late teens, 17, 18, 19, 20, early 20s. Everybody started then when they didn't have, in a way, much to lose. They didn't have a family or children or huge responsibilities, and they could take a risk on building something rather than regretting that they haven't followed their passion or their idea.
Mm-hmm.
So for anybody in the younger ages, the lessons that I've had, both from the interviews that I've done and the research, as well as from my own experiences, starting as young as possible is a great place to do so, even though it makes the journey much harder in terms of learnings. But everybody has to start somewhere. That's not to say that you can't start later in life or restart later in life, just like I've done in my late 30s, when you can apply a lot of the learnings that you've had from your previous experiences. It just means that you need a longer runway or security blanket, whether it's something, whether we're talking about having another job and doing your passion project alongside it, or uh, having savings but being able to have 6 to 12 months of runway before your business can take off and develop in order to move it along. It's easier to, in a way, to have that fallback and security blanket when you're younger, but also if you developed it later on in life, it's never too late to start.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the other things that you touched on, and I ask every single Millennial Master interview that I do, because I personally I don't do great with structure. I haven't been diagnosed with anything, but I like to be able to have flexibility in my life and be able to do, what I want when I want it, to a certain extent, within reason. But at the same time, I understand that you can want to create your own structure that keeps you grounded and productive in what you do.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the main things that I've interviewed now over 30 entrepreneurs for Millennial Masters, they've been telling me, is trying to maintain a healthy body and a healthy mind, especially when, like you said, things can be so hectic when you're an entrepreneur. Things can move very fast, and the stress levels are very high, especially when you have other staff that you have to make sure that um, they get paid on time, they rely on you for their families, for their mortgages, and everything else. So the responsibilities compound and
Mm-hmm.
become much higher. Um, and first of all, from everybody I've spoken to, one of the main things that they do in order to keep themselves sane is some sort of physical activity. Some people go to the gym 3 times a week. Some people go 6 days a week, or they would like to go 7 days. Or some people, like myself, don't enjoy that activity. I don't enjoy the sweating part, but I used to enjoy swimming. But I also had multiple others who told me that they enjoyed a daily walk.
Yeah.
And
That,
walking can be an excellent way of clearing out your brain, especially in nature, sometimes without headphones, without music, but it can also be a great way to um, have the best ideas and some thinking and some contemplating. But also, it's a great way to disconnect and just have a conversation with your friends or your family, or keep up with them while you do that. So, I, from everything everybody told me, having some sort of physical activity, whether it's intense or whether it's relaxed, it's crucial to then keeping a healthy mind. Um, Something that kind of like keeps on popping up, and I haven't tried it myself, but you mentioned it as well earlier in our conversation, and I like to I'll possibly give it a go, is journaling. Not necessarily for having, say, mentioning what you're grateful for, but in a way, having a diary of what are your internal and external struggles, both in your personal life and in your professional life. Um, because when you put them down in writing, whether that's digital or on paper, although I have to say, everybody said that they journal on paper. I'm
yeah.
just a big fan of writing digitally, and I can do it much quicker than I would do it on paper. You just do some signatures sometimes, but that's just me. um, Journaling seems to be a way to do that, and also trying to speak to other people in a way about your struggles and what is happening is also apparently, and it helps people stay on track. You can keep a lot of this in and try and put a positive image. Everything is okay. There's no problem. Everything is growing, when things are really struggling in the background. And it doesn't help both your business and your personal well-being. If nobody knows that you're struggling, they can't look at how they can help you. And similarly, for personal reasons, nobody can advise or support you if you put a positive front always. And that's also a reflection from my own personal experience.
Thank you so much for first of all being honest and sharing your preferences, and that you could also share the reflections of your guests. And I would like then to use this opportunity to continue the subject. Could you please then provide more information to my audience, because your audience I guess they know more about exactly your Millennial Masters concept, because I know you are extremely uh, effective and professional. And it's not just about podcast platform. You are doing a lot of things to share your knowledge, to expand your individual knowledge, which you are working uh, very much and very hard to provide. That it will be organizational knowledge. It's the most valuable actually gift we have, and the most powerful tool, knowledge. And I know, but I would like you to present what you're doing on all other platforms. And of course, because the main message through my podcast is diversity is the game changer, and I would like to touch then the domain of diversity, and then you can angle it how you would like. It can be diversity of thoughts. What's your approach to diversity and then inclusion in everything actually what you are involved into? So could you please elaborate?
Lots of things to cover there. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. But I'll try and tackle it one by one. So if I go off track, please stop me and bring
No,
me
no,
back
no.
on
It's
track.
slow. It's slow. It's
Um,
then I trust the most important that what should have come, it should come. It just brag as much as possible about yourself and just touch a little bit of diversity. Feel free, but not brag.
um,
It's true. It just maybe I can forget something, but I want people to know because you're doing so much, and I'm dying to ask you later about your book, about 50 books. Oh my god. And when do you find the time to do all that? But okay, 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 take one by one.
we can go into that. So the actually, let's start the other way around. Let's
let's
start
do
with the
it.
50
Let's
books.
diversify again. I love it.
Yeah, let's start with the 50 books.
Okay.
So um, basically, I studied journalism. I didn't study business, but I also had to run a business for 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And again, another one now, but in a different style. So it's important to constantly learn and evolve. And when some things in your business or one part of your business works all right, it's very easy to overlook the other parts of the business which do not. So you have to be on this constant learning journey to learn new things. And just for example, like I like to keep up with technology, it doesn't mean that because you use the latest technology that you will have a business advantage unless you turn it into that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I always kept abreast of, for example, what was the latest in technology or in media or in journalism, but not necessarily looking into the deeper business systems and other things that I could have implemented in order to systemize and do things better and learn along the way. So something that I realized and I wanted to change with my new venture, Millennial Masters, was that um, in today's social media world, or the world dominated by social media and quick snap headlines, any argument or any learnings that could be of significant depth and context, which are typically still found in books and nowadays in podcasts, because people listen to a longer conversation and more arguments and more context and more background, can be easily lost because you watch a 10-second TikTok and flick and you just do that, or Instagram Reels, or whatever you watch, or all three, like if you do it like me. And we want things to come to us very quick and digestible, but you get no nuance, you get no background, and you get the idea that all these things can be done quickly without depth or effort or perseverance or other obstacles, because you get this impression that people will offer you shortcuts. So applying both my learnings and what I wanted to develop was reading more books, but not necessarily fiction books, but business books, and trying to bring into an easily digestible manner for people in the millennial generation and the millennial masters a a way to get all the quick takeaways from these books in a way, in a style that they would be used to, but also a bit more at depth, which is why initially it started as the Millennial Masters Book Club, which is a newsletter edition coming out on Wednesdays. And now it's called Book Smart because it evolved from just looking at a single book every week at bringing together concepts from multiple books into a single piece every book. And you asked me how so many books, and I'll the first piece that I've ever published on Millennial Masters that people will still be able to find online is a trick that I found from elsewhere from a Harvard professor about how to read a business book, not a regular book, in 2-3 hours every week, if not more than one book a week. Now, one of the secrets that was shared and one of the secrets that I'm sharing is that in the publishing industry, in the traditional business industries, books have to be quite thick, as you can see. Business books get filled with lots of stuff, lots of stories, lots of background, lots of context. But most of them at their core have a very simple idea. So if you do a 5-minute research about the author of that business book on Google and watch a couple of clips about them, read a couple of articles, then you already have a very good idea of what they're going to be saying in that book. Then if you get the book and then start with the table of contents and read the introduction, usually in the book introduction, in the first chapter, you get the essence of basically everything and all the learnings that are in the book already. And similarly, then you go and read the conclusion. So all you have to do then afterwards is read the first or second page of every chapter, which again, at the beginning of every chapter, the author condenses everything that chapter is about into the first couple of pages and the main lessons and learnings. And only if there is something more that you're interested in or need to learn in that chapter, then you start expanding. So you basically read a business book or go through a business book to extract the value. You don't read it as a novel or as a fiction book. You go there and search for the learnings and extracting the value from each chapter in order to learn and absorb it quicker, rather than having to read it or watch it from end to end. And a lot of people would argue for audiobooks, which I am partial to as well. We were talking about walking, and I love going for a walk and maybe either listening to an audiobook or a podcast. But some of the scientific and academic research that I've read is that when you listen to something, it engages with your brain differently and the way you memorize it compared to when you read a book with your eyes. Now, whether it's digital or whether it's in physical format doesn't really matter. But really, you apparently have much better recall of a book if you read it with your eyes rather than read it with your ears, so to speak. Although it's a great shortcut that you can make yourself productive. And I've seen some other couple of people arguing as well that you can kind of like read a book and listen to it at the same time for the best recall, but that requires the most attention and the most brain power to do so, and you only have a limited amount of hours in a day where you can do that. So either way, use your time to listen to a book when you're walking, when you're going to the gym, or when you're doing any other activities, and then when you read the book with your eyes, that's when you would be looking at a more specific way of reading, where you just don't just go page by page. You go and just look for the quick information that you want to know, and then writing it down and writing down any good information that you find from those books in short format. That's the best way to recall it. And that's basically what I was doing and what I have been doing with the Millennial Masters Book Club. I go through this exercise once or twice a week myself, where I go through the book, extract the learnings, pull them together, and then create an article with some thoughts and some deeper meanings behind it. And now I've been doing it for bringing together 2 or 3 books into one single edition. And the book of books that you mentioned is, I also asked every single millennial master that I interview, what were the books that inspired you for business or for personally? And everybody recommends 1, 2, 3 books. Although I have to admit that there have been a couple of people who have said, actually, none of these business books were any good. And those people are running very successful businesses. So it's not something to take lightly. But nevertheless, the majority of them have had some books that have inspired them, whether it's an idea of scaling a business, whether it's an idea about how to read and understand people, whether it's an idea about just an inspiring story. For example, the biographies of Steve Jobs or Elon Musk keep coming up, or whether it's more practical advice about how to win friends and influence people and use certain words and certain gestures that you now see done in podcasts, for example. All of them have contributed. So what I've done is I compiled a list of 50 books that my interviews and Millennial Masters have shared with me that inspired them, and created a book of books, which is basically with the recommendations from all these people. But then I also went through every single of these books to extract 5, not more, just 5 key lessons to give you an idea about what the book is about. And then, of course, anybody who subscribes free to Millennial Masters on millennialmasters.net, when they subscribe for free, they receive a link to download this book in their emails and get some inspiration. And the challenge was, when I put this book out in January, was that people, go through each of these 1 a week in this system that I shared of how to read a book every 2 hours, in 2 hours, or just a bit more, depending how much time you have.
Wow, what a powerful message. And I'm so grateful to you now that you have really opened the total new reading kingdom for me. I will be for sure practicing that, because I always question myself. I'm so hungry for new knowledge, and there are so many great books out there. How possibly to choose? How possibly to be even not overwhelmed when you have so much stuff that you really want to digest and everything, but sometimes it can be like how to start, how to it reminds me a little bit. Yesterday we had a great conversation with my supervisors, because I hope I'm near to I'm approaching the end of my PhD essay, and they also, it was the same, like, Valeria, again and again, okay, you have to, of course, keep in your mind to help the reader through the essay, but the most important, like you said, introduction, and write the essence there, what actually you try to present, and what kind of problem you are trying to question, right? Research questions, and then maybe a little bit will be in method how you did that, but end conclusion, right? So it's the same, like
they are the most important. The methodology really doesn't matter. The literature review, not as much either, when it comes to academic work. So you can think of it in the same way for a book, but instead of methodology or the literature review, you get stories and anecdotes, and they can be powerful in making a point in a business book. The problem is that not all of them are identifiable with people. If somebody says, I had this experience in whatever corporate environment, or whatever happened in my life in America, you might not be able to relate with it, but the overall lesson is just as important. So you don't really have to read again, for a business book, all of that. So you can get that information out much quicker. And I remember even from my academic endeavors, I've done both a bachelor's degree and a master's degree. For the literature review, it was, again, not a case of reading the whole book. You go to the chapter which was relevant to what you were trying to find and write about. And in the same way, you can scan a business book and go through the parts that are important to you. It's not about, having 100% of it. It's about extracting the value and what matters to you or what's relevant to you from each chapter.
Yeah. Thank you again. It's a brilliant way. I will be definitely using that. And then I would like to address the same question to you. What from these 50 books, can you please mention some particular books which, very impactful and you could recommend? Maybe like you ask your guests. So for me, okay, because it will be strange to ask, can you give me your favorite book? It's like favorite food maybe can be, but because I believe books, it's a little bit different to compare, but at this certain period of time, they can impact, right? Because we are evolving, and then it's like every book should also be in the context of your life. So, but maybe like not Bibles, but basic 5 books you could recommend Millennial Masters should read, or okay, I'm a little bit over. No, still maybe in this age.
When one of the advice when starting a business or a podcast, just like yours, is finding a niche. Whether you are looking at diversity and neurodiversity, whether I'm looking at business is a very big niche. So I obviously had to narrow it down to a certain, for example, age group, rather than narrowing it down for a certain industry. Mm-hmm. Which then I narrowed down to the age group and the generation that I'm part of, which makes my story relevant to it, just like you shared with me earlier about why you are looking into neurodiversity and your personal challenges and experiences which are making you look into it. So something where you can apply your own experience and deploy it as a superpower is important. But you asked me about any particular books and or concepts that can make a difference in somebody's life. Now, again, one of the first article that I've done for Millennial Masters, the written one rather than the podcast episodes, was this hack about reading a book in 2 hours. But the second one that I've done, which I've read and kind of like helped me change my mindset, was Atomic Habits by James Clear, and a lot of people mentioning it. And again, you don't have to read the whole story and the whole book about how he had this massive brain injury when he in a baseball, or I think a sports accident when he was a teenager, and he struggled for a lot of his life afterwards. But the idea and the concepts and that he shares in there, that you have to start small. If you start too big by trying to build a habit in your life, if you start small, just by doing something for 5 minutes a day, but it's like if you start, for example, even a diet, and I want to lose weight, and you put an unrealistic target on it, and you starve yourself because you eat too little and you're in too much of a calorie deficit, it's very easy to kind of like fall off the wagon. But if you're looking at making small incremental changes, that's when you can maintain them and be more consistent with them, whether it's in your personal life or in your business life, whether it's dedicating 10% of your time to responding to emails a day, or looking for new leads, or trying to find new sponsors, or anything else that would be a part of your business, or whether it's exercising every day or having a certain habit or routine that you want to stick to. And just because you fall off the wagon once, or you had a cheat meal, or you went out, or you drank this, or you had that, it doesn't mean that you have to stop. So that was one of the books that I wanted to share first. And again, a lot of the entrepreneurs that I've spoken to, also it had a big impact on them. And again, in terms of personal development, but also in terms of business development, Keith Ferrazzi, his book about never eating alone is very important. It's a book about making meaningful connections and not just seeing people when you want something from them or you have an interest, and maintaining relationships. And people have similarly, in the same vein, you have Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's a book that's almost 100 years old, but the lessons apply across the board. And people have been sharing with me stories, and I know from mine as well. You don't win a client, just because you meet them once and you sell something. People who I've interviewed and doing have a drinks business. They said that they nurtured relationship for 3 years until somebody from a major supermarket gave them a contract. So it's always looking at that human side and being genuinely interested in people and learning from them, rather than looking at it from a transactional standpoint, has worked very well. Now, luckily for me, this has come naturally. I've always felt like that, and I wanted to make friends with people in one way or another. However, these two books are crucial in terms of how you connect and make friends, both in your personal life and in your business life, because when you're an entrepreneur, they are very intertwined. You are one person. You are not really two people, at least. And not everybody would possibly agree with that. You don't have a work self and a you self. You are you, and that's how you behave at work, or that's kind of like how you are at work, and that's how you are at home. You can't really just leave something at the door and then walk in and pretend you're a different person, because then one of these two people are fake. It's either your work person that is fake or your home you that is fake. So it's possibly somewhere in between.
Wow, interesting. And I would even more and more elaborate about books. And yesterday also discovered a new book, which I tried just about spiral dynamic, but we don't have that much time. And I would like, of course, very passionate subject, like you mentioned already, niche, but because it's my personal story and I'm not taking much time to explain again, because my audience know, of course, that I have OCD, neurodivergent. I'm very patient advocate for people with neurodivergence, and really, really hope that our society, I do believe I can get evidence we are on the right path to build more open society where it's not just stigmatization and taboo and it's us and them, but still a lot of prejudice and kind of discrimination. That's why actually I always precise and say it. Even the whole idea and the beginning of my podcast, it was while I've been in mental institution last fall with really severe OCD episode, and I want to show the persons, the people out there that it's still possible. It's still like, it's true what you said. You cannot be just an entrepreneur there and home another person. It's actually probably the best proof what I'm showing, that you can be the same persons with a lot of identities, but also states and stages in your life, but still come back and actually transform your diversity, like in Atomic Habits, into your superpower, right? And maybe then you need the great role models, that some just examples that somebody really have done it. It's not that easy, but it's like you said, every single day, 5 minutes or 6 minutes more. It's not about perfection, it's about practice and progress, right? So, but my question to you about neurodiversity and making, creating inclusive environments and communities. What's your standpoint? What's your reflection about that? You've been working with so many people who are so diverse minds, because what do you think the people like me, like us, I still believe we just all actually just unique in so many ways, how our fingertips never alike, right? Why should our brains should be like? It's nonsense. What do you think about people with neurodivergence?
Personally, although, for example, I like things doing in a certain way, etc., I haven't really diagnosed or checked myself out for anything of that. But I'm sure that if I did, something would come up, and there are some research that everybody's somewhere on a spectrum.
Spectrum, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But on the whichever way I'm on a spectrum, I'm highly functional. But one of the most interesting takes I've had on neurodiversity from somebody who has been diagnosed with ADHD, kind of like later on in life, but has also become a successful entrepreneur, was the first episode that I've recorded for Millennial Masters with Peter Watson, an entrepreneur. And his point was, at least in the workplace, and I'm going to be doing an article bringing this back up again, actually, I think this week, is now, especially with the advent of remote work, and you don't have to necessarily go into an office or find a job that is near you without commutable distance, and the world of work has changed, is being able to, if you are in his argument, to which I partially agree, if you are in a job or a role that doesn't cope well with your neurodiverse path, it means you are in a wrong job, and you can deploy whatever is your neurodiversity status into a superpower. If you are a developer and you don't do great with structure or having commands, a web developer or a coder, but you can create amazing products, or you are more productive at night rather than at day, then become a freelancer or something that allows you to work in your own terms, your own hours, when you are productive, rather than having to be at 9 o'clock somewhere in an office.
Mm-hmm.
Or basically, the world now is so much freer that you can leverage your neurodiversity to your advantage as a superpower. But this does come from an entrepreneurial mindset. So this is the caveat. And I said, not everybody might agree with it. But if you want to leverage and that's my personal view, if you want to leverage your neurodiversity as a superpower and do it on your own terms and be accepted, then you need to take risks. You can't have the comfort blanket of a job that does this, and that for you and allows you to do all this, but also to then you being able to impose adaptations from your neurodiversity. You have to take the onus of, if this is it and I'm not working on it, or I can't work on it, or whatever is the status, then I need to design my life and what I do in a different way that adapts to it. I can't just expect a traditional job or role to adapt for me to
Mm-hmm.
it.
Mm-hmm. Do you think then we are already there, that whether you can sit and just reflect for yourself before you apply on a job, if you would like to be an employee, and adjust yourself, or you can actually share now openly while you're searching, while you in your recruiting process, that you have neurodivergence, and ask if that it can be midpoint in the middle. Maybe they also can adjust a little bit for your specialty.
Absolutely, there is space for that, but then again, it wouldn't be for a generic job. It would be for something that you are possibly going to likely be a specialist in, and you have a superpower or a super knowledge, and you are that good at doing those things that they will compromise on the other things. But in a typical, I don't know, retail job, for example, I don't see how there could be much compromise being done about that. If the job is fixed and you have to be in a shop and you have to make the coffee in a certain way, or that's it, that's kind of like how it has to work. That's a process, that's the quality standard, that's the process.
Yeah, I get it. Thank you so much. It's very important. That's why I love my podcast. It's diversity of thoughts, that we have all different perspectives, or I call them sometimes glasses. That sometimes, because I'm basically just with kind of my perspective on seeing that, but then you give me your glasses and I put in a new one. Oh, okay. It also can look like that, right? So it's very, very useful, especially when in our really, really globalized world, when we face the global challenges and we have to fix them united. So it's very, very important to be open to listen, not just pretend to listen, but really listen and digest carefully and learn, because I think the most important about knowledge that we have to share, and we have to learn from each other. In every interaction, every relationship, we are both pupils and teachers for everybody, right? So, but it's also from spiral dynamics, you have to come to this evolving stage when you can look at every single direction like that. So
I guess
yeah,
if I would try to make a comparison or an analogy,
yeah,
maybe slightly controversial, but it kind of like just came through my head. So I'm happy to share and get a bit of feedback from you as well, and see how you think and how you find this. But what I would say is, there's obviously nothing wrong with being neurodivergent. All of us are. There's certain adaptations that have to be made. But I think there is a danger that some people can wear neurodivergence on their sleeve, just like vegans do about their eating habits and their diet. So, instead of just meeting somebody, it's like their identity is being vegan, or then your identity becomes being neurodivergent rather than being this person with the skills and this. Yes, veganism is more of a, not necessarily preference, but conviction, while neurodivergence is not as changeable. But the idea is to possibly not turn your whole personality around either being vegan or being neurodivergent. Is accepting it, working with it. It's obviously okay to share it with people, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the first thing you do or tell somebody in a workplace or even in a personal relationship.
exactly. It's one of
It
your
not to define your whole identity.
yeah. I'm that's I 100% agree, because we have so many identities, and then it just one. It's actually the way you perceive the information. It's nothing. It should not be like really served like a starter, and then through this lens, the person should perceive you, because then it's like you don't need to put label on yourself. You are unique. That's it, and we all different. But how it's just for you to have this. I don't know. Uh, Maintains book, kind of how you should deal with yourself on a daily basis, but you don't have to go around and even to mean yourself that I'm that, because I totally agree, because then it's easier to go in this path that no, I am like this and everybody should adjust, and because I am like, because we're all the time evolving as well. We are never the same person today like yesterday, like a year. So it should not be like, you label like tattoo here. I'm just like that, and I'm not open to. We are all the time changing, like also spectrum all the time changing, right? So thank you. It was actually a great comment, and I'm happy you share that. Before we wrapping up, I have the small tradition to play a little bit, to have my game, because I don't have that big team yet.
Okay, let's do it.
And then I do believe in magic. We started with childhood, and I always connect childhood with fairy tales. And I'm Ukrainian for fairy tales. I'm Ukrainian. I need them in my life. I do believe in magic, that war is over very, very quickly. Yes. And first, this little helper, from which fairy tale is she?
That's Aladdin, right?
Yeah,
Aladdin's lamp.
exactly. This is Genie lamp, but a little bit maybe modest version, because
A bit
it wants to
smaller.
help many guests, but cannot grant three wishes, or me, and we can do it together. But one wish, it's perfectly fine. So now my question is, what wish just right now comes to your mind? What would you uh, wish to fulfill? It can be for you, for anybody else, for the whole humanity. It can be small, like pizza with anchovies, or it can be you name it. It's just your wish for
I'll go for a big one, and I'll
okay.
say world peace and prosperity. I think if humanity would find a way to go beyond nations and borders and zoom out and look at the bigger picture, I think, in a way, the way society and economies are built is that there has to be a winner and a loser in every context. But considering we are all on a piece of rock spinning around the sun and moving at 70,000 kilometers an hour at any point in time in a massive, vast universe, we need to possibly think about working together to improve everybody's lives on this planet. Because even if we are not alone in the universe, anybody else who is out there is nowhere near us. So we are still alone.
Yes, okay. Wow, what a beautiful illustrated and imagined your wish now. Because I really, when you start describing this, I really like, oh my God, it was so powerful message. I really could see it. So yeah, it's true. Sometimes we have to distance really that much to understand that at the end of the day we are whole. We deal with the same, all of us together. So yeah, thank you so much. I'm sure she loves your wish and start working just right now.
Hopefully, so give it a good rub, yes.
Yes, yes, okay. I will take care of that today. Put my rituals cream here. I love it. I love everything pink, and she is pink. Okay, it's not advertisement, but this is very nice balm, so I will do it after. Okay, Daniel, thank you so much. Oh my God, it was so powerful, so knowledgeable, insightful, deep episode. So I could learn so much. My brain muscle now could get so much
A challenge,
good,
yes.
delicious food that I can see it and play and digest. It's the best I know, at least. So thank you for sharing your powerful example of your personal story and the story of your guest on your podcast, and share with us that power story entrepreneurship can drive meaningful change, and then we have to do it united. We have to, at the end of the day, like you said, we just really together on this rock which is spinning, right? And we have to, I believe we have to implement more empathy. Really. And was is it your absolutely last thought or reflection before we say
We can talk
goodbye?
for hours, Valeria. We can talk for
Yes,
hours. So we'll keep it on this one, and then maybe we'll catch up again in another episode on something else later on.
absolutely. I'm sure. So I just then wish, of course, much luck, and of course you're on the progress with all your projects. You're great
Thank
inspirational
you.
for
Likewise.
me. Yeah, so please take very good care of yourself, and also like I'm doing with Lamp, so clap you on the shoulder and sometimes stop, breathe, and said you are doing perfectly. You are so great role model. I'm so privileged, honored to have you today with me, and you, my beautiful audience, stay with us, stay bold, stay inspired, and just if you have the idea, just. To reflect one time, start, breathe, pause, and just give a hug to your sense that you're good, you are doing good with all we have now in this special, very challenging time. You're still here. If you're with us, you're already evolving, so you are doing good. Trust yourself. Thank you. Bye bye. Have a nice, beautiful afternoon. Bye, darling.